Gita Dhyanam. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters from within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Upanishad. Hari, come on. Move over here.
There?
Yeah!
He's in there on the desk coming.
He's not here.
He saved a spot for you.
Are you living in the future again? Okay. So, trifold faith. So what do you suppose Lord Krishna is encouraging us towards in this whole discussion? Is he just telling us what is?
How it be?
To move towards the sadhana.
Faith. Yeah. So the next 3-4 shlokas, there we go, are supporting this movement towards sattvic faith. And so he's described the practices of the one who has sattvic faith, right? And we see that it's possible to engage in these practices and that there are specifics given that are helpful in terms of recognizing the practices and engaging in them earnestly and honestly. Yeah. Okay. So, such as how one eats, how one worships, what types of austerities does one engage in, how one gives gifts, all of this, right? So really the activities of life. The activities of life. And now, as we come to 23, is the accompaniment, as it were, for these sattvic practices of life. Om Tat Sat. This has been declared to be the triple designation of Brahman. By that were created formerly the Brahmanas, the Vedas, and the sacrifices. So some discussion here of Om Tat Sat, the meaning and the practice of it. Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj adds commentary. He says, Om Tat Sat is the root of the entire universe. Om is the Akshara Brahman. Tat means that, the indefinable, and Sat means reality. Parabrahman, that supreme being, the abiding place of all that lives and moves, is beyond name and class. The Vedas have ventured to give a name to him. He says, a newborn child has no name, but on receiving one, he will answer to it. Men who are troubled by the afflictions of this world run to the deity for refuge and call him by the name. When Brahman is invoked through the name, that which is hidden is revealed to an aspirant. You see the connection, what he introduced with the baby? And in the same way, we create the name, as it were, we use the name. But in utilizing the name, we didn't create it, not as individuals did we create it. So we can say it's created already. But we use the name in order to call forth that which is nameless. Yeah? These three worlds have a divine power of their own. The vibrations that they produce in one are such as to arouse the latent divinity. These three words is what we meant to say. Om Tat Sat. Is to arouse the latent divinity and also to secure the necessary response from the cosmic being whom they connote. When a sacrificial rite or the like is found defective, it will be rendered perfect by the utterance of this powerful mantra, Om Tat Sat, or one of the three designations in the end. With Om or Om Tat Sat, all acts of sacrifice, study of sacred scriptures, spiritual discipline, and meditation are commenced. If the doer of sacrifices, offerings, right, remembers either of these mantras, all obstacles that stand in the way of success of the sacrifices of the offerings are removed. Om Tat Sat has been declared to be the triple designation of Brahman in the Vedanta by the knowers of Brahman. The power of creation that lies in the Creator emanates from this mantra. When he, capital H, meditated inwardly on the meaning of this mantra and repeated the threefold word, he acquired the power to create. Then he created the Brahmanas, gave them the Vedas to be their guide, and directed them to perform sacrifices and other rites. So in the Absolute, meditated upon the word itself became the world. And therefore, what we see, of course, is that this is the underlier of everything here. Right? Yeah, it's the underlier of everything here. It's the underlier of thought. It's the underlier of everything. It's that vibration is there. That sound is there. There was a question that came some years back one day, and the question was, I wonder what sound the atoms make then, which means not what sound do they make in their vibration, but what sound are they? If you can listen to an atom, what can you hear? And of course, what you would hear is the hum. Yes?
Right.
Yeah. And so I Googled, and sure enough, it has been discovered
Really?
that the sound of the atom is hum. Om.
It's not bad. Something on I would think the sound would be quite.
It's not. So you speed that up. Just speed it up. Yeah. See, the sound is a full sound. There's a lot going on in it. If you're aware of the vibration in chanting Om, if you watch the vibration, you'll see it's pretty active, yes? It's not a passive vibration. So it's being equated to the creative sound. It's a sound of creation, isn't it? But everything created, the sound is still there. The vibrational signature is still there. Sometimes we talk about the underlie of matter being vibration, the underlie of the universe being energy. But energy is vibration, isn't it? Vibration is energy. Mm-hmm. And vibration is sound. One of the commentaries that I was looking at this morning, I used to play with a toy. I don't recall the name of it, but it was it had kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, kind of like that, but it had a medium of sand on top of a fiber, like a drum head, something like that. And you could bring it and play sound,
Really?
and it would take shape.
Wow.
Of course, it'll do, because it's possible mandalas will arise from different vibrations, different sounds, right?
Yeah.
Just a beautiful connection to it's actually the sound that's the underlier.
Greatest.
And the sound is is the sound still a sound when you repeat it in the mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it is. It's not a spoken sound, but it's still a sound, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah. So the vibration is there. So vibration first, Om first. So just an interesting way that Master Shivananda lays this out. He says, the power of creation that lies in the Creator emanates. So we understand emanates, comes forth from this mantra. So the power of creation, the power to bring forth this play, this illusion. And the illusion is very detailed, isn't it?
Very.
So the power of creation that lies in the Creator emanates from this mantra. So comes from this mantra. When he meditated inwardly on the meaning of this mantra and repeated the threefold word, Om Tat Sat, he acquired the power to create. Then he created, using the word, using the vibration, using the sound, he created the Brahmanas, gave them the Vedas to be their guide, and directed them to perform sacrifices and other rites. And the sacrifices and other rites, if we see, this world is a world of action, yes? So it's underlain by Om, and then the creative factors, and the knowledge. Action is underlain by knowledge, correct? Mm-hmm. The Vedas.
Yes.
And then the sacrifices. Sacrifices are simply a way of saying action. Mm-hmm. Every action has a import, as it were, and a purpose, as it were. Finally, sacrifices are offerings without expectation. But we discussed every other kind of sacrifice. Rajasic sacrifice, which is quite common, is in order to get something, yes? Okay. Oh. So he's saying action and other rites. So action. Okay. So continuing from Krishna. Therefore, with the utterance of Om are the acts of sacrifice, gift, and austerity, as enjoined in the scriptures, always begun by the students of Brahman. Why? Can you speak to why that would be? It should be straightforward, but...
Always begun?
Yeah, why would one always begin, a student of Brahman, a student of the truth, why would one always begin any austerity or sacrifice, any practice? Why would one always begin with Om or Om Tat Sat? Why?
To make holy, to bring forth.
To bring forth, to connect.
Yes.
To set the stage, as it were. Mm-hmm. The stage is a sound stage.
Very good. Yes.
The stage is a sound stage. The place from which you perform any action is a sound stage. You call it a mind.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it's a sound stage.
Yes.
It's full of sound.
Mm-hmm.
So to prepare the sound stage, as it were,
Right.
for the action.
So that's why we chant Om at the beginning of every workshop or every
Om.
activity.
Om. Therefore, with the utterance of Om are the acts of sacrifice, gift, and austerity, as enjoined in the scriptures, always begun by the students of Brahman. To set the stage, literally. And so Master Shivananda adds to the commentary. Those who are knowers of the scriptures have a vivid impression of Om in their minds by means of meditation, and they will utter the pranava, Om, with the proper attitude and feeling. Then, meditating on Om and uttering it, they perform the sacrifices. Just as a hill stick is very useful in climbing a hill, Just as a boat is very useful in crossing a river, so also Om is very useful and important in the commencement of an action or sacrifice. It is not desirable to renounce actions or sacrifices to attain union with the Lord. Listen.
Yeah.
It is not desirable to renounce actions or sacrifices to attain union with the Lord. What is wanted is total and perfect surrender of all actions to God. Sacrifice, charity, and austerity are not hindrances to the attainment of self-realization. On the contrary, the attainment of liberation is rendered easy by their performance without any selfish desires or egoism. So sometimes we make fun of rajas and rajasic personalities and such, which is a big mistake, because we were discussing yesterday. The only issue with the rajasic austerity is
Wanted something for it.
yeah, it's the only issue.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that's exactly the way you want to engage.
Yeah, you have to act.
You want to engage in a way where people would say, he's so passionate about what he's doing.
Suffering. Rajas.
Huh?
Yes.
With great energy, with great commitment,
Yeah.
one wants to engage.
Oh.
And this is not about stopping action. Becoming actionless is knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not stopping to act.
Oh.
Huh? Swami Shivananda is very much on it and sharing and wanting us to hear. So, not wanting to act is tamasic.
Mm-hmm. Hiding out.
It's hiding out.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not consistent with the injunctions.
So we're in the body.
Only when one is free, but then
Yes.
they say, I don't do. You know, Swami Premananda is a beautiful example of this, because there was always so much going on at the ashram. I was there when there had been big monsoons, big floods, and the mountains crumbled. Many of the roads crumbled. In fact, I'd just come back from Vietnam, and I was immediately wanting to get back to Swamiji's feet, Swami Premanandaji Maharaj's feet. And I was on a bus going up towards Uttarkashi, and the rains it had already been raining for 2 days. When I landed at the airport in Delhi, the monsoons had started, and this particular storm had started. You wouldn't normally call it a storm. It was just such a steady, heavy rain. It wasn't accompanied by lightning and thunder and all of that, just at the beginning of it. And then it just rained. And it was as if the heavens had opened up and it just rained. And we actually got stuck. The roads are all carved out of the side of the mountain, and the roads were crumbling, literally, and villages were crumbling, and buildings were falling into the Ganga like this. Something like 25,000 left their bodies during that storm through the region. And so we got stuck. We were hosted by, and I befriended 2 swamis. I hadn't taken sannyas myself yet. But befriended 2 swamis. They were both disciples of Dayananda, Swami Dayananda. And so, word reached that the road just ahead of us had crumbled, had gone into the Ganga. And the road just behind us had gone into the Ganga. It wasn't possible to turn around. Wow. We just happened to be in a place that had more distance between the village and the river. So that particular place wasn't at risk of crumbling, but a couple of kilometers either way had already gone. And so, great after the storm, great rescue efforts and all of this, but we were able to get back down to Rishikesh after the rain ended, and we climbed down. We did some hiking, and someone made us aware of a way to get down to past the break in the road, and we got back to Rishikesh. we stayed at Dayananda ashram for a few days or so, and then I was able to connect with Swami Ramaswarup, who was able to get down. When I finally got back up, about a month later, I walked up to ashram, to Uttarkashi, to Swamiji's feet. And I got there, and it was an absolute hub of activity because the helicopters were coming in and going out. It was the center, the ashram had become the center of the aid effort in a particular part of the Himalayas. And there were about 20 people there that had helicoptered in, that were, and Swamiji's moving about. He's involved in everything. He's talking with everyone. And he looks at me and says, I'm not doing a thing.
Oh.
But you never would have thought that looking at him. But the mistake that we make as sadhakas is to stop doing, thinking that's the way. But that is not the way. That is not the way. And so I'll read again what Swami Shivananda says here. He's very direct, he's very specific, and he's very consistent. He's so consistent on this point. It is not desirable to renounce actions or sacrifices to attain union with the Lord. What is wanted is total and perfect surrender of all actions to God. Sacrifice, charity, and austerity are not hindrances to the attainment of self-realization. On the contrary, the attainment of liberation is rendered easy by their performance without any selfish desires or egoism. You know, we're just about to step into chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. And chapter 18 is once again the entirety of the Gita in one chapter. But what happens after the 18th chapter of the Gita? What happens?
Life goes on.
No, I mean in the story of the Bhagavad Gita, specifically, what happens?
The war starts.
The war is prosecuted. So the entirety of this teaching, Lord Krishna has been telling Arjuna, do your job, and I'm going to tell you how to do it, what spirit in which to engage in it, what to think of, what to speak, what to do, how to do it. What is the secret of this life? How to stay connected to that secret of life and do.
Yes.
And do.
Do.
And this battle, you know, we watched Mahabharata together. It's pretty intense, right?
Yeah.
How much sleep do you suppose he gets every night?
Not much.
Some days?
No.
For days at a time? None. Absolutely none. Yeah. And is he doing something other than what he's supposed to be doing?
It's doing. Yes.
Yeah. Oh. So it's in this. And by the way, look around the world right now. The roads are crumbling. The rains are coming. I mean, it's... Yeah. Oh. So he's giving us the prescription, you know. He's saying, here's your goal. Here's your goal. You want to get to this place of sattvic faith in order to have the union that you seek. And then the accompaniment, Om Tat Sat. Continuing, 25. Uttering Tat without aiming at the fruits are the acts of sacrifice and austerity and the various acts of gifts performed by the seekers of liberation. Master says, the immortal soul which transcends the whole world, the three gunas, the three bodies, the three states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, which illumines everything, which is the basis of all and the source of everything, is connoted by the word Tat, or that. The sages and the aspirants meditate on Tat, on that. They utter the word Tat and say, may all our actions and the fruits of them be in the name of Tat. And of course, Tat is Brahman. Thus they offer all actions and their fruits to Brahman and practice renunciation. They are freed from egoism and the bondage of karma. They attain self-realization through purity of heart caused by selfless, motiveless, and desireless actions. The action that is ennobled and sacrificed by uttering Om at the beginning, and which is offered to that, Tat, is transformed into the nature of Brahman. All actions in their entirety, O Arjuna, culminate in wisdom. And he's quoting from chapter 4. He who does the actions with the spirit of sacrifice becomes Brahman eventually, Master Shivananda says. He who does the actions with the spirit of sacrifice becomes Brahman eventually. Tat is symbolic of the presentation of all the fruits of all such activities to Brahman. If you utter Tat, it is tantamount to saying, they're not mine.
Yeah.
What has begun with Om is given away to Brahman with the utterance of Tat. Helps us bring in some meaning to it as well, right? Some relationship with it. And then the word Sat is used in the sense of reality and of goodness. And so also, O Arjuna, the word Sat is used in the sense of an auspicious act. And Master Shivananda says Sat Bhava, or this truth feeling. That which is unchanging amidst the changing, that which is permanent amidst the impermanent, that which exists in the past, present, and future is Sat. The reality behind the ever-changing names and forms is Sat. The substratum in which the ever-changing forms inhere is Sat. Meritorious action is Sat. He speaks of sadhu bhava. He says an attribute of harmony with nature so that the world's cycles move smoothly. The word sat is powerful enough to make a defective action perfect and complete. When a good action is likely to be rendered asat, or bad, owing to a single defect, the use of the word sat makes it free from defects and brings it to a successful termination. The word sat removes the evil quality of the action, as it has the power of purifying and rendering the act perfect. Sat is existence absolute. Sat is Parabrahma. Sat is the inexpressible symbol of that mysterious, indescribable, illimitable, indivisible, self-luminous, immortal Brahman. The word sat is used when you wish to express the reality of an object which is unreal or which is relatively real, as for instance the birth of a son, who is unreal or relatively real in telling that a man is one of good conduct when his conduct is not good or is only relatively good, and in expressing that an act is auspicious when it is not auspicious or only relatively auspicious. Brahman alone is real. It alone really exists. But we say when a son is born to Mr. Govindan, that Mr. Govindan's son has come into existence. From the viewpoint of Brahman or absolute existence, Mr. Govindan's son never exists. The word sat, which is only applied to Brahman, is used also for Mr. Govindan's son, who is unreal or relatively real. Brahman alone is absolutely good and absolutely auspicious, but the word sat that can properly be applied to Brahman alone is applied to an act when it is not auspicious or which is only relatively auspicious. The use of the word sat renders the imperfectly performed actions perfect. The word sat in the Sikh tradition, do we know this? The word sat is the primary name used for the absolute, to connect with and to relate to the absolute. Satnam. Sat is the name. Sat is the name. So we have in the Sikh tradition many mantras where the emphasis is on Sat, not Om.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more, 27. Steadfastness and sacrifice, austerity and gift is also called Sat. So taking the resolve to engage in sacrifice, austerity, and gift in a sattvic way with sattvic motivation, taking that resolve, and then being steadfast in it. This is Lord Krishna speaking, is also called sat. Now, recognize that Lord Krishna is about to send Arjuna off on the battlefield. So all of the words, all of the mantram that are being shared, etc., they're all pregnant. They're all very meaningful, right? And so I'm about to send you my son out to do my bidding. Yes?
Yeah.
And so steadfastness in sacrifice, austerity, and gift is also called sat. And also action in connection with these, or for the sake of the Supreme, is called sat. Okay, we can come back in the morning. We just have actually one more shloka, but here. We'll complete. Swami adds his commentary. He says, if you perform sacrifice, austerity, gift, and all actions in a spirit of total surrender to the Lord or the eternal being with purity and sincerity of heart, you will attain the highest goal of life or immortality, freedom, and eternal bliss. If you do them in the name and for the sake of Brahman, you will attain perfection and supreme peace of the Absolute. If you pin your faith on the glory and power of this name, Om or Om Tat Sat, you will be freed from the bondage of birth and death. If you perform any sacrifice, austerity, or charity, or any action in a selfless and motiveless spirit, surrendering all the actions and their rewards to the Lord, and if you utter the word sat with faith, feeling, and devotion, you will attain perfection and success in the action. Even the imperfect and the non-sattvic acts of sacrifice, austerity, and gift will be turned into a perfect and sattvic ones. And last, Shloka 28. Whatever is sacrificed, given, or performed, and whatever austerity is practiced without faith, it is called asat, O Arjuna. It is not, so it's nothing, here or hereafter. And so any action performed without faith, Lord Krishna closes the chapter by saying it's nothing, here or hereafter. In this world, it won't get you anything here. Or hereafter, it won't get you anything in terms of experience after departing the body either. And then Master Shivananda adds this comment to help clarify. Asat, that which changes form and has no permanent existence. It does not mean non-existence as such. So more of the same, like that. Acts of sacrifice, austerity, and gift that are performed without faith, under pressure, or to prevent some sort of trouble or to gratify a craving are asat in their nature. They yield no permanent benefit or fruit to anybody. Any sacrifice, austerity, or gift done without dedicating it to the Lord will be of no avail to the doer in this earthly life here or in the life beyond hereafter. It would be as useless as showers of rain falling on rocky ground or pouring oblations of ghee on cold ashes. If you have no faith, you will become egoistic and obstinate. Your heart will become hard. If you perform even hundreds of sacrifices without faith, without the spirit of self-surrender to the Lord, even if you distribute the wealth of the whole world in charity, without faith in and devotion to the Lord, all these would be worthless and useless. The sages will not appreciate such sacrifices or gifts. Energy, money, and time are simply wasted. And that brings to a close. So thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, the science of the eternal, the scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, ends the 17th discourse entitled The Yoga of the Division of the Threefold Faith. Hari Om Tat Sat. comment, question, anything?
So if you're raising a sword or shooting an arrow, you can say Om Tat Sat.
Yes.
Om Tat.
Yes.
Make it say,
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Oh.
Or starting your karma yoga, you're like Om Tat Sat, and then begin.
Yeah, of course. If you're not chanting mantra at the beginning of and during and at the end of the karma yoga, you're missing.
to have faith and make everything sacred.
Yes.
That's it. For the one and all.
The vibrations, the sounds, as it were, make it so.
So I'm thinking what he said at the end.
Yes.
But there is people that don't believe in anything, for example, but they will do a great sacrifice.
Tamasic faith.
Yourself. Yeah.
No, they believe. They have faith.
But what I mean is that they will do a huge sacrifice to save someone, and not for themselves, but because they feel something from the heart in a beneficial matter for people, but they don't believe in anything higher.
It gets what is given. It gets what is given. Whatever is given is received.
Yeah, karma.
Or amplified or magnified. So that's one way to relate to. So if the Lord is placed at the center of the action, then the action brings the union with the Lord. But if personal gain is placed at the center, money, power, whatever it is, then it will bring the impermanent. It won't bring any relationship to the permanent, to the eternal. It'll bring the money, the power, but of course, that's not what's really wanted.
And the suffering that goes with it.
And if it's engaged in from a place of darkness, it brings more darkness.
So you mean in that case, for example, it would have been, because what I'm saying is the person doesn't think in God, but there is a beneficial act that is performing.
Well, is it a beneficial act, or is it a desire for something to happen?
Right.
The thing that you desire will happen. If you put all of the energy and resource into it, it'll happen. But you have some idea it will be beneficial, that's incorrect.
The preconceived notion.
Well, let's
Let's say that you pray for someone's physical health. Only. Yeah. So can there be some power in it? Yeah, there can be some power in it. But it's just propagation of the same. Nothing, not, it goes for naught. In some period of time, the physical health will fade anyway. Yes?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then what?
Yeah.
Yeah, still in union with the changing,
Right.
with the impermanent. Still suffering. Physical health doesn't ultimately have anything to do with suffering or not suffering. Right? That's changeable. Health comes, health goes. Comes, it goes. Some have relatively more, some have relatively less. The health that's meaningful, mental health, emotional health, and finally, spiritual connection. Knowing oneself, knowing the connection between oneself and God and the divine and the absolute. Yes? That's the only end to the suffering. And here in the concept of the term sat, otherwise it's asat still. And it will bring asat, the continuing changes, the continuing show, the continuing connection to the objects, the continuing desires for the objects. Ragadvesha remains in charge. So it goes for naught. Does that make sense? It goes for naught. Yeah. Difference between helping and serving comes here. Yes? If you serve the one, you're serving Sat, that which is true and real and eternal. Yes?
Right.
But when you're helping, and you have the attitude of helping, even by the way, in prayer, if you're praying, who are you praying to? Right? Who are you praying to? Are you praying to demons? Are you praying to, really, I'm not belittling it or anything, just saying, who are you praying to? Look at that as well and see. If you're trying to do something yourself through your actions, in order to bring what?
Well, if it's in order to bring happiness and well-being.
How can you if you don't know what it is? Right?
But you think...
If you yourself have not... Yeah, I understand.
Isn't it like the intention that counts?
Isn't it the intention that counts? I cannot imagine... So you're discussing really Rajasic and Tamasic faith. Yes?
I'm trying to see why it would fit in that category and not in Sattvic. Even if the person's not connecting with God, but is trying to spread well-being and happiness.
It's asad. It's asad.
Motivation.
It's asad. You have not connected to the truth.
That's right.
Yes?
But it's a selfless motivation.
If you have not connected to the truth, there's no such thing as a selfless motivation.
Yeah.
It's either tamasic motivation or rajasic motivation. Either I want something from it, or I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to be a benefit, but I'll try anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah? If one really wants to be a benefit, one has to learn how to be a benefit. Even if you want to be a benefit in a worldly way, you have to acquire some skills or some gift in order to be a benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So whatever it is that's acquired will be imbued with the attitude underlying, with the nature of the nature underlying the acquisition of the gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? So why do I wish to become a doctor? In order to become a doctor, you're going to have some motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And the motivation has to be either primarily tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic.
Right.
And therefore the actions engaged in will be in accordance with the underlying nature with which they are imbued.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if my intention was, if my underlying motive was tamasic, then I'm not likely even to have completed the doctor, unless I'm doing it in order to honor some dark motive.
Mm. Right.
But then what I do would be imbued with that.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's in order to bring glory and fame to my family, again, it's fine.
Right.
It's fine. Just look, that's where we're saying that whatever is the underlying nature will bring itself into the offering. And so the fruit would be in accordance as well. What's the experience what's the Rajasic experience? I do in order to get something, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I do in order to bring fame and benefit to the family name or something like that. It's fine. So let's say that. So now I do, and do you suppose we're unaware of whether it brings fame and fortune or whatever to the family when we're engaging in the action? So that subtle expectation is always there, right?
Yeah.
And there's also a checking in as to whether it was successful in that way. So, and we'll see it, of course. Doctors will fly around the world in order to act, but if it's a rajasic motivation, then there will be a need for fame or a need for recognition or a need to get paid for it or something like that, right?
Right.
If the motivations are purely sattvic, if the motivations are really, really, really purely sattvic, then that implies a connection to a higher ideal.
Like Swami Vishnu flying.
Right. And so, but how do you relate to God? Do you relate to God as a person or do you relate to God as an ideal? Either one are fine. If you relate to God as love, it's fine. But still, then you do in the service of love.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
So, you don't have to call it Brahma.
Right.
Okay, we should close. Page 174, short final prayers in Arati. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhi Pushti Vardhanam Orgai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhi Pushti Vardhanam Orgai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyamamritat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orgai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityoi Mukshiyamamritat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Sakura Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. By the way, before we stand, this comes, just so this threefold Om Tat Sat, have there been those who are self-realized, become self-realized, or come into union with God and are not chanting those three? Of course so. But the principles underlying them, it couldn't happen without a relationship to the principles.
Right.
To the principles, right? So relationship with Om, the reality, the highest, yes. A recognition of doing for that, and the motivation to abide in truth and to engage in a way that brings truth into the situation. So those have to be there, right?
Yeah.
The principles still have to be there. Even if the specific words aren't used, but here in this tradition, we're given the words. Here in this tradition, we're given the words, and so grace.